Danny Masterson was being investigated by the LAPD. I found out that multiple women had complained about him. It was a crisis moment. They had come to these incidents happened way back in 2002 and 2003. Right. But they had reopened this whole thing, and when the women went to them in 2016, and by early 2017, I was hearing about this and that they were really panicked because the LAPD was doing some very strange things with this investigation, things that came out later in a trial, some really strange missteps that the LAPD was doing. And these women thought, Scientology's messing this all up, or the LAPD is, and
cut them in the pocket.
And so that's what my initial story was: is that is the LAPD messing up this investigation? So that was a big story because then the LAPD did admit that they were looking into Danny Masterson. All the press covered it, but then I covered it, that story virtually every day from 2017 until he was convicted last May. So it's been a big part of my life, and what I always tell people is the real story is what these women have been through. They have been through so much harassment and so much, again, the LAPD was messing it up at some points. I know it looked like the prosecutors were kind of holding back,
prosecutors were
it took so long. That story came out in March 2017. The prosecutors did not charge Danny Masterson until June 2020. So for 3 years, these women were waiting for some kind of a case to emerge.
Guys, if you're not following me over on Instagram, my personal page is at Julian D. Dorey, and the podcast page is at Julian Dorey Podcast. Both links are in the description below. I'm trying to build that out. I've never focused on it before, but it's important that obviously I get the fans over there because we announce a lot of things pertaining to the show. So I hope to see you follow me there. Check the links in the description.
Do you think some of that had to do with, I'm just playing a little devil's advocate here, had to do with the fact that the cases were like 14, 15 years old when they were first reported?
It's always going to be a tough case. When time has passed, when you got a celebrity involved, all these things made it a difficult case.
That's right.
But you put the Scientology element in it, and that's what really makes it difficult. And
why for this?
Well, these prosecutors knew that it was going to be, what they wanted to convince the jury of was that the reason these women had not come forward earlier was they were worried about retaliation from Scientology. So you have to explain to the jury why that is, the fact that Danny's a protected celebrity. And that's why I was there, Julian, honestly, is that I wanted to see how much Scientology was a part of this case. And it was a very big part of it.
Like, as in obvious to the idea even that you see dudes sitting in the courtroom who are maybe hired thugs of Scientology?
Not just people in the gallery. The attorneys on Danny's side were doing bizarre things that only made sense if they were taking directions directly from David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology. Okay, so before there was a trial, there was something called a preliminary hearing. In a preliminary hearing, you have just the victims testify. You don't have all the witnesses testify, but you just have the women. This is the first time they testified on the witness stand.
And they're Jane Does, right?
The 3 Jane Does.
Yeah.
And this first time they got to testify was in this preliminary hearing. At that point, Danny Masterson's attorney was Tom Mesereau. If you remember Tom Mesereau, who defended
Can you pull him up, Alessi?
Michael Jackson and
big time guy.
And he he's the one with the famous hairdo.
Great hair.
Yes.
He does have great hair.
And I was sitting just right behind him in the courtroom. This was like kind of during the pandemic, so that like there weren't very many seats. You had to sit far apart. I was sitting right behind him. And they had questioned, I can't remember, was Jane Doe 3 was on the stand. And the attorney for Scientology leaned over you know how there's a little barrier there between the gallery seats and where the attorneys sit in the right. She leans over it and she's saying to him, "It's not in there. It's not in there." And see, I'm not trying to hear them, but I can't help it. They're like 3 feet from me. What she's pointing at is this Scientology book. So then Mesereau gets up and he goes up to Jane Doe and he says, you keep saying that you weren't allowed to report Danny Masterson and that's why it took you so long. And you keep saying that it's in Scientology's rules that you can't go to the police. I have the ethics book here. I'm going to ask you to look through a chapter and you tell me if you can find anything in there about not going to the police.
Was this like something written by like L. Ron Hubbard?
Yes.
Oh my God.
This is in the preliminary hearing. Okay, so we take a break. We come back. And he says, okay, so did you look through the book? Yes, I did. Did you find anything in that chapter about not, that you can't go to the police? And she says, no, I couldn't. Thank you, Your Honor. Right? Like the big Perry Mason moment.
He's strutting off.
And
Got him.
it's very clear to me that he did that because David Miscavige had told the attorney to tell him to do that. Okay, so then the prosecutor comes up. It's his turn. He says, Mr. Mesro, can I borrow that book, please? And so he takes the book and he shows her a different chapter. And it's right there in black and white. Scientologists cannot report to civil authorities. Isn't that what that says there? Yes, it is.
They think they wouldn't find that?
Right.
Like,
and so this is the best moment. He walks over. Again, I'm sitting right there. He's like 3 feet from me. The prosecutor walks over, hands the book to Mesro and says, thank you. That was very helpful.
That's incredible.
And that was the moment I wrote about this. This was 2021. I was like, I just witnessed David Miscavige and Scientology completely screw up Danny Masterson's defense live in front of me. That's how involved Scientology was in this. There was a huge blunder, and it kept costing them because anytime after that, when Mesro or his successor, this guy Philip Cohen, would argue to the judge to keep stuff out of Scientology out, she would always remind them, you guys brought Scientology into this case to begin with. That blunder cost them over and over and over again.
And that was the one you're mentioning is from 2021. So that's the first trial, right?
That was the preliminary hearing.
Oh, that's right.
So
that's right.
That was the women. The 3 women testified, and the judge then decided there is enough evidence to have a trial. That's the point of the preliminary hearing.
Now,
these women ended up testifying 3 separate times in the preliminary hearing, the trial that had a hung jury, and then the trial that convicted him.
so that's amazing that they did this and
They
put
went through
themselves through
so
that
much
ordeal.
torture. That's what I want people to understand, how much an ordeal these women went through over so many years.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.